Good morning, everyone. It is Monday, August 9th, and this is Nadex Morning Analysis, where we look at hot spots in the market for today. So, my name is Todd Rich. I'm with Nadex. With me from Keep Trading Simple is Brian Caprice. Before we jump into it, I do need to share this disclaimer that trading involves risk and may not be appropriate for everyone, that any trading decisions you make are solely your responsibility and at your own risk. And this is an educational session. Please do not construe anything Brian or I say as a buy or sell recommendation. We are doing this for your education purposes. What are we looking at today? We do have a couple of hot spots in the markets. I want to move this over. Give me 1 second. There we go. All right, this is the first one we're going to be looking at: crude oil. Crude oil is definitely a hot spot. We can see what's gone on over the course of the past week, where oil has gotten pretty much hammered. I think in the past week or so, it's actually down around 10%. Of course, we're not seeing that at the pump yet. Hopefully, we will see that at the pump when we want to start buying our oil or our gasoline. But the story right now, the data coming out of China over the weekend, that they are importing less oil, or they imported less oil in July than they did in June. Now, you have to realize China is the world's largest importer of oil, and their demand is going down. Demand goes down, price is going to go down. Why is their demand down? And that is because China is enforcing and putting in more measures to curtail the spread of the Delta variant there. This is just a glimpse of what is going on around the world. It appears that we are about to do this all over again, as we try to deal with the Delta variant. So we've got oil down just shy of 4% this morning. The other hotspot we've got in the market is the Dow is actually down a bit this morning. The other equity indices are uh, a bit mixed, but the Dow is the one that's taking the beating this morning. So we'll look at some technical levels there as it hovers right at that 35,000 mark, which we know is an important a mark for it to either push through or hold. So we'll see how that goes. So Brian, I'm going to flip it over to you. Let's talk a bit about oil, and then we'll take a look at U.S. equity indices,
Mhm.
namely the Dow, and we might take a peek at the other ones as well.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's a typical Monday morning right now. I mean, and when you look at the grand scheme of everything out there right now, you can see that there's not really a whole lot of movement. 10, I mean, Aussie dollars moved one, dollar CAD down five, euro pound three. I mean, even the pound yen, which is known as being the most, the biggest mover, it's only 16 pips since the open over basically the last 24 hours. So not a whole lot today as far as news goes. Not really a ton. We have, Jolt's job openings at 10 o'clock today may provide a little bit of maybe a little bit of a push later on. And then we have Barkin speaking later on today. Again, that's considered a medium impact news release. And again, it's one of those names coming out of the FOMC. So maybe something to watch. As far as what we're seeing, as far as the kind of the big news, the infrastructure plan is there. You mentioned, the Chinese oil. There's been a big, Asian stock slip as gold slides and oil takes a spill. That's been one of the big ones. Australia has also expanded their lockdown. And it's interesting. We talk about record cases here, but Australia expanded their lockdown to Byron Bay, but they were very, very quick to note that even though they expanded the lockdown, there's been no infected, no new cases, or there hasn't been any recorded cases of COVID-19 there. It's just
Hmm.
the two people that were infected had traveled there. They went against the travel ban, so their response was, let's immediately lock it down. So um, take it for what it's worth. But again, that seems to be a way for them to kind of limit travel and limit the spread. And they've done a pretty good job about it.
Yeah.
So not much we can say. And again, China, whenever they're hearing things, it's they go to like the immediate hardcore lockdown again, something that their nation can do a little bit differently than we can. So, it is what it is. Looking across, I was always looking at the dollar today, and again, the dollar has really rallied up since the open yesterday and kind of pushed back up. It is in an area right now where there could be a potential reversal for it, and that always kind of goes over, and then we start looking at oil because of that. Oil, interestingly enough, continue to drop, and again, seeing less demand because they are locking down. Absolutely, without a doubt, would again, supply and demand driven product. It came down, and you can see the two levels that we had last week, the 66.97, 66.73. It had actually, not only did it base in the first level, but it based it in the second level. Um, it's like it knows, right? But here was, just above that is where the open was from Friday into Sunday. And it just dropped, it based, and then it dropped again, and then based again. And, it's kind of whipsawing back and forth, and it started a little bit of a retrace. So, there are two levels a little bit lower. You can see 64.56 and 63.64. I'll go back in time so you can look at these, and it's been quite a while.
Yeah.
But you can see that this was that price tag was a U.S. Open price tag, and again, big push, as well as here was kind of an end of the day / kind of rallying point. So of the two, I like the 64.50 better than the 63.50, but both of them are obviously levels where, again, we've had sellers in the past, and again, the lower one has been tested. So, I would say, what we've seen. Again, we've seen these kind of reversal patterns. You can see that the European session last week had ended low and then had done that same rally back up again. Where it is right now, I mean, again, if we're going to follow this, this kind of pattern that we've seen, not that it can't. I mean, here's a day last week where it pushed down and then it pushed down again. Not to say that it couldn't continue to go lower, but again, have your plan for it. Maybe, you look at this and you say, hey, if we break 65.12, that would be some of those lows. Then again, we could have potential bounces and there's a short trade in there. You may say, hey, listen, we're going to retrace back up again. There's not really any, crazy news. The U.S. is not going to start locking things down again. I think we're just going to go to the mask. And, I think with 70% of people vaccinated at this point, put it this way, if they lock us down again, you're going to have some really angry people that are vaccinated. It's like, why are we getting vaccinated if you're locking down again? And masks, well, we wore masks, but masks didn't work. So all those questions come back up again. I'm pretty sure we're not going into full lockdown phases again. Again, it just doesn't kind of vibe with American society. So we're going to continue using gas. If China's not, that's okay. But again, I would say that after this big push down from the European session, and if you look to see when this really started to move, there is the European session open. So it had already started to move a little bit, but it did give us a pullback to that level. I'll make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. It's been pretty much one direction. So there's going to be some profit taking come in here. The retail trader will see that China is using less. I assume a little bit of a down move. But if you're looking for a bottom, I think that there's probably a bottom in here somewhere. It's just, finding the right entry. Right now, with it chopping back and forth, there's just not a lot. And again, we need the U.S. trader to fully get on board. We need the retail trader in there to start establishing the volume so we can start drawing some zones. But, if I had to say, where are decent levels that we could, grab things, I would say that, potentially, up here at this 66.73, that's the last time we had basing, and that's where the Europeans drove it straight down again. So that should be marked off as an area where there's potential sellers. Right now, we're just kind of in an area where we're just basing. And, if you're looking for something near term, 66.73 or 64.56, I think are both decent levels.
And if you're looking, and here I'm gonna zoom in on this chart a lot so we can see it a whole lot better. There, that'll help some a little bit. But if you are, how could you potentially play this? Because we really don't know how the retail trader. I mean, it looks like it's catching a little bit of a bounce right now, but these binary options certainly a way to potentially play. You've got plenty of choices here, particularly shorter term ones as you wait and see the shorter durations. These ones that end at 10 this morning. You might see some volatility as the retail trader comes in, and we try to figure out where oil's going to be in the next hour. Uh, as people digest the news and the retail trader gets in, you might see a little bit of action, some opportunity in those binary options. All right, let's do a quick peek.
I would say, and it's important to note too. Remember, this is data from July that they bought less in July. We know we've been able to see what the weekly inventories are here in the United States, and the weekly inventories have been going down, 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 down all the way through July, and then we finally got one surplus. But again, we've just had negative it's been negative, 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 negative. So again,
we were consuming it all summer. Right now, the question is, do we keep consuming it?
Yeah.
So.
Well,
So the oil numbers this week will be kind of fun to track when we talk about them later. Let's jump over and take a look at the equities.
Yeah. I would say, I mean, here's the Dow right now. The Dow is down slightly. The Russell's down the most. And again, that's what we tend to see. The Russell is going to typically move faster than the other indices out there. That's how small caps tend to work. Dow down, I have right now zero point 0.3 or 0.28. You can see this red arrow down is really where we opened up for the weekend. And it was kind of a lot of negative sentiment, a retracement back again. But if you want to draw tops, I get it. It broke through a little tiny bit here, a little bit here, and then kind of snapped very fast. But this was at 3 o'clock in the morning, so kind of makes sense. Besides that, it's been respecting that area. So the big question is, what do we do now? There is a 15-minute level that had great buying off of it. And again, this explosion in price, or I'll put this here. Let's change this to black. This explosion in price was at 8:30 a.m. Okay, so again, this was news slash retail traders stepping in, stepping online. Again, non-farm payroll data spiking this higher. So right now, again, with the U.S. trader coming on board, infrastructure bill being passed is good, right? That's a positive thing. I think the comment was that it's on cruise control, the Senate passage is what we're being told. That obviously it's going to get through the hurdle or no problems. An infrastructure bill like this obviously provides jobs, spending. Those are all things that do help propel our economy, particularly the Dow. Not not the NQ as much, but the Dow absolutely. It is kind of set up on a 15-minute level for a pop. It is starting to move already. But again, there are going to be people watching this trend line. And again, where is the trend line approaching right now? Where is price right now? 34,999. So that equilibrium point of 35,000.
Yep.
Zeros act as a magnet. But overall today, I mean, just looking at what we've seen, again, infrastructure is good. It's one of those things that, just because the Asian session is down doesn't mean a whole lot. Bond rates are low. It's just one of those things, like there's not a lot of negative news hanging out there. So I think at 10 o'clock, Bostic is speaking and the job openings. Again, it's forecast to be 927 million job openings. So I don't know. All these typically tend to be pretty positive. Again, if Bostic and Barkin both get in there and say, "Hey, listen, our economy is rocking. We need to make some changes." Again, they're not the member that is really pulling the trigger on these things, but them making positive comments about how great the economy is doing could also help propel us higher for today. So I think it's important to keep those in mind.
All right. So those were the two big hotspots. Definitely looking at what's going on in oil, and then the Dow seems to be, or the Russell. Take a look at those two different equity indices, but those seem to be the ones that are moving the
Mm-hmm.
most. Was that the Russell that you put up over there?
Yeah, that was the Russell. I mean, here's the S&P. It's not doing a whole lot. We know we got a
Nope.
gap sitting just above it, right to that level. So none of them are really, like I said, they're kind of like waiting to see what's going to happen. And again, 15,000, we're pushing. We're in that basing level right now. So like I said, they're all kind of just lining up, saying, okay, what are we going to do today, guys? We going up, we going down, and none of them I would say are super trending at this point.
Right. All right. Perfect. But we're starting the week. We will get at it. With that, any questions for Nadex, please email us, customer service at nadex.com. Any questions for Brian? You can catch him at support@keeptradingsimple.com. And our quick recap on what we discussed. The news this morning, at least, oil down nearly 4%. I think it actually was down 4% at one point. I think it's rallied back a little bit.
Yeah, it's really
Uh,
back a bit.
but oh, you know what? Let's go ahead and take a peek. We're going to go backwards one because we just got a question, and I'm going to go ahead. Let's take Brian. You want to pull up a chart of gold? Let's just take a
Mm-hmm.
quick peek at gold, because gold did make this strange move overnight. So hang on a second. I'm going to flip this back over. And by the way, you're here joining us. Go ahead. You type in the question. We'll go another minute or two longer because gold did make a strange move. In the evening session, it rallied it back. But here, Brian, you want to just cover that real quickly?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, gold right here is where we kind of there's the open. And again, understand there's not a lot of trading volume in here, so it's very, very easy to move price. It was a big push down, and this was all in relation to kind of the news out of Asia. They're importing less and lockdowns. Remember, gold is an inflation-based commodity. With the economy being recovered, that's where inflation sets in. We've seen massive amounts of inflation, but all of a sudden, when you have Australia locking somebody down in COVID, talking about additional restrictions in China, that goes against the inflation story. At the end of the day, it doesn't really change a whole lot. You can see it's pushed all the way back up again. But the reason why it dropped was purely because of COVID. Because if we're going to lock down again, everything about inflation that they said being transitory is, again, more into the it's probably true camp. Because again, lockdowns are going to, really going to put a damper on inflation the way that they are. So, as we advance
Right.
through, gold goes up. Lockdowns, it kind of drags us backwards in the inflation story. And that was the initial response. Again, being a low volume time, no industrial sized traders in there, it's very, very easy to drop that price down again. And that's why we went from 1760 all the way down to 1670. And then we pushed all the way back up, and it's only $10 less than it was, when it opened or, closed on Friday. So not a ton there.
Mr. Gold's wild ride.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and
right.
and understand it's easy. A lot of people will get stuck in that one, and it's important to note. I mean, go across, you can see that 72% of people are net long. So when you know that, I mean, when 3 out of 4 people are long, right? People will try to hold this over the weekend. That's why you see these big spikes down again, because people are not paying attention on Sunday nights. So again, a lot of it is, it's mostly the Asia story. It's the same thing. It's just the
Yep.
reason oil is dropping is the same exact reason gold is dropping.
Gold dropped, right? But and people immediately kind of reacted to that drop in gold and step back in,
Mhm.
buyers. So there you saw
Yeah.
it, a little
And
crazy
again, be
ride
careful
in
because,
gold.
again, Bostic and Barkin both could mention how inflation is higher than expected. And that could lead that to rally back up again. Or they could say, we're already seeing inflation disappear. And again, that also hurts gold. So,
So right, when with the Fed folks speaking,
mhm,
you do kind of just have to be attuned to what they say in their speeches and in any
mhm.
off the cuff remarks. So all right, so again with that, um, thank you for joining us this morning. Brian and I will be back tomorrow morning. We will take a look at hotspots for tomorrow, but today we definitely saw oil get clipped quite a bit with the data coming out of China, and then Dow opening a bit lower, but we're looking for some potential support right here at the 35,000 level. Yeah, and gold made a little bit of a crazy ride as it took a sympathy sell off with oil in the overnight session, but traders stepped right back in and drove that nearly all the way back.
Just think about the down
Thanks
draws,
everyone
Todd.
for joining us.
Just think about if you're
What's that?
a futures trader in gold, $100 move to the downside, what that does to your account if you're not controlling your risk.
Yeah, 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 and that's controlling risk. This is exactly why Nadex products with their defined risk reward, uh, you could sleep at night from something like that.
Yeah.
All right, we will catch you again tomorrow morning. Want to wish everyone good luck in the markets. Thanks all.